I'm going to introduce our facilitator for today is none other than Miss Lilanti Hera, who was with us and who was very helpful with our previous Leaders for Next Gen batch as well. And Mrs. Herat actually has an academic backing in project management. So, project management is something that, as a teacher, as an entrepreneur, as, a doctor, we all have projects that we work on. Like even this morning, Mrs. Herat, we were talking about the 5 a.m. club and how to own that first hour that we are awake, which also is like a project. Right. So there's projects that we have all around us, and a skill that we really need in today's age is how to manage projects. It's not an easy task, but it is something that we all will need. More so is this group of young leaders for the next generation, because you are going to have a project, a problem that you will need to identify. You'll need to think about it, understand it, come up with a solution, and then do a project on how you are going to bring this solution into your community, and hopefully we are able to show this to the others and we are able to overcome the problems that we face, right? So today I am so excited that we have Mrs. Herat with us to talk to us about this very important aspect of life that involves a lot of skill. I would recommend you to have your notebooks, pens ready. Start taking notes, ask questions, right? As you know, I was very happy to see Kithion, Tuaraga, and Netmi, because they were your previous batch and they went through this training, and here they are today as examples of what you will get out of the program. So thank you so much, Mrs. Herat, for joining us once again and being a very vital part of Leaders for Next Gen 2.0. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Mrs. Herat.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. Welcome all of you, and let me just tell you my background. I am an accountant by profession. I have a few qualifications and fellow member of some UK and Australian accounting bodies. And I have a master's in project management as well. And project management today is a vast area. And as Susan said, project management is, if you study project management in real term, it's a 3-year course. And that's what I did as well for my master's, a 3-year course. And it is actually a very vast knowledge base, but I'm trying to just squeeze in the relevant points for you to understand the relevance in this knowledge for your project. So that's what I'm trying to do. I have a few slides. I have only 14 slides, and I want you all to just understand the important points here. So project management per se has been there for a very long time. I think long before, the 20th century, but it became very popular and professional, and it became a project management study when there was this IT boom in 1960s, and when there were rockets being launched in 1950s, and also very recent addition is healthcare. And most of these constructions, the engineering projects, they were all done before without having this name project management in there. So let's start with the project, what a project is, right? All the projects are temporary efforts. When I say temporary, it has a definite start point and it has a definite end point. And a project is actually to create value will have, the project will also have a team, right? It will have a budget in the sense you all will have certain expenditure that you need to spend on, and that is what you call actually a predetermined budget, and then a schedule and a set of expectations from the stakeholders. There are so many other stakeholders like your community, whatever the project you are taking in on, the people surrounding your project, the people who are affected or as a result getting benefits, they are all stakeholders. It can be nature, it can be the rivers, it can be the trees, or whatever the project that you all take on, those are all your stakeholders. So you will have stakeholders, you will have a project timeline, and and you will have a budget, and it will be, yeah, it can be a very unique project, or it can be something very ordinary as well. So when you essentially do a project, main thing is it's considered temporary. Some projects can be, it can be long drawn, it can go for years, but it is going to have a definite end date. That is why we say it's a temporary, uh, the project has a time. And so when you have, okay, so after that, you have an execution process, and then you have a plan. You Before execution, you have a planning process, execution, and then a closure. Sometimes the projects can be very small, very urgent, a computer program to support something, or it can be like building a highway, which takes about 10 years, but still you will have a specific end, start date and an end date. And also, um, the project will also have somebody running it like a leader. The project manager will also have some specific qualities, which I will touch up at the end before we finish. So this is actually the project. Now, when you all are asked to do a project proposal or a project, what you are supposed to present, that project, whatever the supervisors have given you, the criteria for the project, go by these steps. It will be easy for you. You will be organized well to do a proper project within the time scales. So, to understand project management, we need to actually take a look deeper into deeper into what constitutes a project. The projects are temporary efforts. As I said, it has a definite start time and a definite end date, and a clear value through a unique product and a service, or and it is actually engineered to resolve a problem or a task, right? And some timelines are longer, as I explained, and some timelines are shorter. And it could be a major public project, or it can be a small software development, which gives a, a small system update. All these need project management skills. Otherwise, you will have either delays in projects, in delivering, meeting up with deadlines. There will be issues with teamwork. There will be teams who are disgruntled and unhappy and confused. So let's just take the project management steps, step by step, understand how it's done, and then we'll move forward. Right. So the project management is, it consists of several phases. Project management starts with initiation. Initiation actually says a lot. There are presentations below for you to explain, for me to explain all these items one after the other. project initiation starts with scoping. It's like, just before you start doing a crossword puzzle, there'll be so many um, uh, there'll be so many what do you call pieces of puzzles all over. So you need to just take all that, understand what you need. Each task, each activity should be identified. You need to understand what your scope of the project is. Now, when you all select a project, let's take your own home. There are people who, now your home is also a one big project at home. Your mother is most of the time the project manager, right? She runs the show, she maintains the budget, she knows the scope, she knows where you all have to be at a certain time, your education levels, what you need to do, when you have to eat. All those are known by the project manager, who's your mother at home. And most of the time, the father is the facilitator who provides everything and just gives the mother the full freedom to run the show. So it is like that when you are at home also. The home is run by a very successful, very empowered, very capable manager at home. So that is exactly how, when you relate that kind of a situation to a normal project, you will also see how projects are run without without many hiccups. So the project management involves planning and organizing the resources. Now, the resources for you all will be your knowledge, the knowledge levels you all have, and your guidance you have from your supervisors as to what you need to do, and your final outcome. And it can involve a one-time project, as I said, or an ongoing activity. Even an ongoing activity, as I said, will have a definite end date and a close date, start date and a close date. Um, um, Leading these projects are project professionals, as I explained, and people who most of the time the project managers are qualified, but it doesn't have to be necessarily be qualified. Large projects like, these IT companies launching of a rocket, or, checking whether there's water in Mars. No, those are things that people will need a very professional project team. So when we do a project management cycle, I'm just moving into this now. This is where the real cycle starts. Some projects are actually done. Some projects are started to quickly resolve problems with understanding that improvements will be made over a period of time. And some projects have longer durations, as I said, like highway, believing in highway, constructing a highway. There are some projects which will have a longer, a mix of the long term and a short term activity. Project professionals, they are generally using a variety of skills and knowledge. Now, you all must be coming from different backgrounds. Your knowledge will be used for those when you start understanding your project and initiating, and when you go through your planning process. Now, these are the main steps you have in project management. Actually, this is also called the project life cycle. You have the initiation, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. So these are the main points where the project life cycle has to be managed, and you will also have milestones, identified through these processes. Project management involves the planning and organization of the company resources to move to a specific task. So your company resources, in a sense, it will be your knowledge and your knowledge and and your responsibility to complete it within the specified time. It can involve your, your colleagues. It will have your own finances, technology, and your activities and tasks. So project management has its own discipline. It's it's this part of this project management, this slide I'm talking to you about will actually give you a very good knowledge about how you are going to do your project. Project, now when all these, when there was a boom in all these activities in the project, in early 1960s, and when it was when the projects were happening at a very large scale, people needed to have certain structures and regulations and rules to govern the projects. And in 1960s, Project Management Institute was formed to give everyone certain guidelines and parameters to work with. There are, the documentation, what has to be done, and, how your initiation has to be done. All those were identified by this PMI, which is actually the Project Management Institute, and they are still creating project management literature. And project managers use this literature and the documentation to do informed decision making in the process. So when you are doing this, the project manager will identify what your goal is, what you are trying to do. Now, all of you are project managers. You have to think as project managers to understand how you will go through the process. Of course, there will be one person who will just drive the project, but all the team members will be thinking like project managers for you to understand how the project will be. This is actually a very interesting subject when you sit and do it practically. So now reaching a goal is, and achieving an outcome is, and also creating a deliverable is all about doing your project management process. In other words, the project is a set of tasks and activities completed. It has to be completed to achieve a specific task, and it will have your originally agreed upon results during a specific time. And projects meant to be temporary endeavors, and it's not actually recurring activities. And now, if you take a project manager, the project manager should be, in all of you, should be very keen and understand about, you all need to understand about your timing and the project timing, the project scope, and the project resources. I was just talking about how the Project Management Institute was created when there were so many very high level projects were taking place, like rocket launchers to see, checking whether there's water in Mars, and these very serious software projects. All those were done. When they were being done, everyone realized that there were no proper protocols and parameters to guide a project. So therefore, the need for an institute was very high. They created the Project Management Institute in 1960s to give proper guidelines and create literature which will actually direct all of you to do a project in a specific manner. So the project actually is a set of tasks and activities completed to achieve a specific predetermined result. And the projects are, as I said, has a definite uh, start date and a definite end date, and they will be using a lot of tasks and activities and specifics to achieve your to complete and close the project as a successful project. And I say, and I also said there should be somebody in this group who will actually give you the direction, the timelines, the scope, and the resources to do the project successfully. All of you have to think like project managers to do a project, not as just team members. Everyone has that skill and everyone has to chip in one way or the other. The core areas of project management actually are scoping, planning and delivery, and reporting and closure. Scoping is where you have, like a crossword puzzle. You have so many pieces all over. It's all mixed. It's not in a proper order. You don't understand what that crossword puzzle is. But you will be actually looking at in this initiation process, the scoping process, which is also called initiation process, there will be so many crossword puzzles, pieces where you need to put together. Those are actually your tasks, your team, your budget, and what you are planning to do. All those will be in your initiation and scoping section. And during scoping, the project manager will gather all those elements to kick off the project. And they will all, and the project manager will also identify the reasons why the project is important. The stakeholders can be anybody, those who are affected by the project, the people, the community, whoever you are you are actually gathering information, whoever you are getting involved with are your stakeholders. And then after identifying the reasons for the project, you present it to the stakeholders, and then you are going to estimate the time and the resources necessary to support this project. Now, for you all, you have a specific date by which you have to present the project. So you will all know when you have to start and when you have to end. And then securing the budget. In most cases, you might not need a lot of money, but even the time that you spend on something is cash, is money. So you have to be very mindful of the amount that you are spending, and your project manager, as the project manager, you have to monitor how much you are spending, and it cannot go beyond your budget, because everyone, there is a just like the time, there is a restriction in the budget that is given to you. And then the planning and the delivery of the project and how it's completed will also be taking into account. You will be assigning tasks to project delivery teams. You will be actually just giving your team, each one of you will have specific team tasks, and then identify the correct issues like bottlenecks and stoppages. We will, there will always be issues in a when you do a project. You can always have issues, and you will always have issues. It's not just one or two. You might have bottlenecks where you just get blocked somewhere. Those are things that you have to identify and take corrective measures to make sure that the project flows and you are able to complete it by the specified end date. So let's go and talk about about each of these topics. Initiation, project life cycle has the links. I will be going to the other slide. Okay. Initiation is the process the group looks at actually whether a project is valid or not. You will now, I think your supervisors will just check whether the project that you want to do is applicable, whether it's actually relevant to the study that you are the study that you are doing, and the outcome will be monitored, and you will have the required resources, your team. These are actually during the initiation process. You will be doing you will be identifying what the resources you need. You will be building the team, and you will identify who your stakeholders are and your cost estimates and risks and dependencies. Now, there can be so many projects that you just say a project where you need fuel, you will need petrol to do something. But then again, if there is a project, if there is a now that is a dependency for the particular project, so you will have to identify what will happen if there is no fuel for you to continue with the project. And then the project timeline, as I tell you, in every single section, all these processes will have common elements where you need to check your time and your budgets, right? In not just during initiation process. Okay, so the next important step in the project management is the planning session. The planning is how you reach the goal or objective. Now you have your scope. During your initiation process, you have identified your team, you have identified your scope, and you have identified your budgets. And now is the planning stage. You from start to finish, you will be planning on how how things will get off ground, how they will be built, and how they will finish. This is actually all about the plan, the planning, starting your project, and then how you process your project until you reach a successful closure. And during this phase, you generally develop an action plan. An action plan is actually supported by your project team. Your entire project team should be fully aware of what this plan is, and your scope is known, budgets and important milestones. These need to be actually monitored and presented in a very professional way. Now, when you if you are in an organization, you have been asked to do a project. Uh, there are so many software tools you can use to monitor your success rate, and to see where you are. There are so many software programs where we can actually do gang charts. I'm sure during your A-level sessions, you all must have heard about gang charts. Gang charts are like, time bars where the tasks and timelines are shown in bars. And these are actually, you can actually add all your timelines to a gang chart. It is very easy. It doesn't need a lot of knowledge and expertise. When you go to very serious project management, you get CPMs, those are critical path diagrams, and tracking devices, and work breakdown structure diagrams. Those are not required for your project, but I just mentioned it because there are so many monitoring tools you can have, and you have to identify during your planning phase, what kind of reporting structure you will have for your project. And these are assembled when work is defined through the execution strategy, which we will be discussing now. Executing is actually where all your initiation and your planning processes are put to work. Teams Now, during the planning session, you will have your teams to, you will assign certain team members to do certain specific tasks. Not everyone has to do everything together. One can be, there are so many disciplines. I think there are people who are specifically smart in certain things. Some can actually, some are very good with their computers, some are good with their design, some are good with, something more, hands on, like, sewing, stuff like that. So you can identify each person's strength and assign tasks related to those people, so that you have a diverse team of diverse members in the team to perform the task. So you will be assigning the team during execution time. You will be assigning the teams the certain tasks, and you will tell them what your action requirement is. And then they will also make sure that such tasks of each task member is monitored and followed up. And a very good example is, now, if during your project, if you have given certain tasks to your team members, and if one team member is stuck with a computer, or certain limitations they have, you will be able to just understand that issue and resolve it without waiting till the last moment. During this executing time, it's very important that the project manager manages the project and may ensure smooth running of the workflow. And all parties are collaborating. If all parties are joining, coordinating, and doing the work together, it will be easy for you to achieve the target. So that is actually the executing process. And correct whatever the problems that you envisage, that you think will have an adverse effect on the success of the project. So because there can be adverse effects, you will be measuring progress. You will, as I mentioned in those Gantt charts, when you do a Gantt chart, you will actually uh, give, say, every process a period of time. Now, there are so very small tasks which you need to identify to actually measure and understand whether you will be able to finish it in time. So each single process has to be monitored. It has to be given a time frame and has to be monitored whether those will be finished within that time. And then and you have to see whether your costs and your scope are in line. You can't have 500,000 budget, and within, even before you reach the before you finish the task, you can't, that entire 500,000 cannot be spent. You need to know exactly how much has to be spent, when it has to be spent, and the time frames. And then also, if there are any hiccups or any issues in between, the manager has to take corrective action to keep the project on track. So that is actually the monitoring and controlling process of the project management phase. This is the fourth phase. And then the project closure, when all those areas, the previously discussed areas, initiating, executing, monitoring, and controlling, is done, you will have an end. Your project, when it reaches when the project reaches the end, there will be a final phase where the project will be closed. You say formally, okay, we have done the project, we have achieved our target. And this is an important process where you will do your presentation and you will show. Now, when you do your presentation, you will see, you will actually list down the risks that you have encountered. And the leadership will have to do that. Your entire team will have to sit and do this closure process and the documentation and the and see what really went smoothly and what really went wrong. Those are the areas where you need to list down and understand and present it when you do the project, whether you all had any problems and how you all resolved it, and if there were very smooth transitions, what those were. And then how to, if there were any mistakes, how you can avoid those mistakes in the future. And also list, as I mentioned earlier, listing down the risks involved in this process. And also, when you do your presentation, final presentation, make sure there is one slide where you can show your lessons learned, what you have learned from this project. And it can be, a mistake where you all have actually made a mistake, and you all took corrective measures, and that is actually a lesson learned. You understood there was some problem, and then you have taken the initiative to do the corrections, and make sure that you document all your findings and facts and findings. And when it is closing, every project has the project has the time frame. If you in this case, in your projects, I don't think there will be any room for you to move out and say you couldn't actually meet up with the timelines. I suppose the timelines will have to be met, whether whichever way, or get help from people who can actually help you out in those. And when the planned time frame is coming to the end, the project manager will keep all the team members working on the project to finish the scheme, and then you do the report, and then you do the presentation. And this presentation should also be through good communication, right? That will be a presentation you will do, and everyone will have a say in the matter, and all of you will have an active involvement in the report that you all do. Everyone will have to understand that it's not just one or two who will do the report. Every one of you will, because it will not only improve your presentation skills, you will also understand how to contribute to report writing and presentation. And now I'm actually just going to the, now when we select your project manager, in the sense, the leader who will just run this project, there are certain skills that we expect that manager to have. And those, I call him a manager not because he's an official manager, but he is the leader who will run the project for you. That person will have to have very good organizing skills, will have to be able to have the skills to work with teams. Those are soft skills that you will learn eventually. There are soft skills that you need to understand how to, especially after school, when you are really corporate ready, when you are doing your first job, how you can actually improve and enhance your skills to work with the team, and how to get involved in office activities, how you have to behave. All those will be soft skills that you will be learning eventually. And then working with the team leader has to be someone who has those strengths. And the leader will be finally delivering and driving the plan, executes initiatives, and helps the project to achieve what is required to be achieved. And now, for a project manager or the leader who is leading the team, will definitely have to understand your timing limitations, your scope, and the resources that you have. It may not be, you may not have all the staff members that you need, all the team members you need, but you will have to manage with the resources that you are given. So when you are selecting the manager, the leader for the project, there are about 10 requirements that we generally identify project managers or the leader of the project to have. So they are really, this is interesting. This is actually not just for project managers. When you are working, when you are doing, your own business, everything that you do in life, even when you are in school doing some project, you will have to have these skills if you are to continue your leadership skills and enhance your skills in a proper for a proper career. So one is the first one for the project manager to be knowledgeable is the integration part. How now when you all identify what the project is, understand how it will actually align with the requirements of your supervisor. Now, the supervisor would have given you the direction as to what your project has to be, how it has to be done. So you will need to understand how it will fit into the bigger picture, in the sense how it will get integrated to your course study. And then the scope, the project manager's knowledge should be very, very high on what the scope is. He can't not know the scope and then expect your team to perform. And that plan has to be in his head and has to be documented, and it has to be the controlling point. He will have that document, a proper document to say, okay, by this time you need to finish this for me to get on to the other team, for the team to continue. There are, certain sequences of all your project activities. So those sequences will be managed by him. And the team, they will actually get the um, team to stay on the task. Time, as I mentioned, time is very critical. You have only a limited number of weeks for you to complete your project, and then you have to understand that every day matters. You can't just be you know just be ignorant about the fact that your time is limited. And then costs. I don't think there'll be a very huge issue about cost planning. I'm sure you all will uh, not like identify a project which needs a lot of money. So your cost, identify the cost. When you identify your costs, remember your every minute of your time is also a cost, although you all don't understand. Every minute, the time you spend on a project is costing your time. The time is very precious, and it can be put a value to. So you have to understand that you can't spend now for a 5-minute job. You can't spend about a day and expect it to be successful. When you have a short time frame, make sure that the time frame is practical for you to achieve it, and also you achieve it if it is practical. If it is not practical at the planning stage, you all need to understand that it cannot be done and they have to be changed at that time. Right. And the quality of implementing now quality is actually in most cases for production of it goes with production and manufacturing processes. But your quality of the project will also determine on certain factors will actually determine the quality of your project, like how you present it, the facts that you have, the documentation you have done, and the information that you are going to share with the stakeholders. So these are the quality measures. What I would say is applicable to your process when it comes to presentation of your final findings. Procurement. Now, this procurement is actually the purchasing part now. In your projects, it might not be relevant, but then again, if there is anything that you need to purchase, you need to plan that purchase well in advance so that your timelines are adhered to. Now, say you have 3 weeks and you are supposed to buy something on the third week, you can't plan the purchase of that item on the third week itself. Your planning has to be done on the first week itself, so that you know exactly you have placed the order, you have given the advance, you have made sure that it has to be delivered within a particular time, so that your procurement is actually well in advance and planned. Procurement is also a very large, huge, a massive area where you need to learn a lot. There are degrees in procurement, just like project management, there are degrees in procurement. So, the seamless integration of onboard collaborators on projects, those are actually, those are big words, but in essence, what you need to understand is when you are doing procurement, the procurement has to be done. You have to plan your procurement so that the procurement is in time. Now, there are so many procurement processes where I think one is very commonly heard and discussed, just in time, JIT systems, where you order the item exactly on the time, at the time you want it. But then again, that is also a little challenging, because you have to find suppliers who can supply it as and when you order. If they don't have stocks, you have to understand, your project, your timelines will not be met. So those are the hiccups that you are encountering if your project manager is not fully aware of your project procurement processes. And then human resources, understanding team dynamics. Now, see, in your teams, there'll be people who just can't pay attention to anything, more than 10-15 minutes. So if you have a lot of them like them, you will not be able to achieve your targets. So you need to understand what your team dynamics are, their strengths and weaknesses as individuals, and and plan to use them effectively to achieve your project. And communication. Very important to maintain open communication channels. Um, Communication channels are actually, now when you do your communication, it has to be both ways. It's not just you saying something and another party listening to it. You have to be, and you have to communicate and wait for the other person to communicate also back to you, and then have active communication. It is not dictatorship. Like, you are not just telling them, okay, you do this, and there can't be any more questions. Like in schools, we study, the teachers say, don't ask any questions, we listen to what I say, and that is it. It's not like that when you come to this grand big world of corporate, where you will have a two-way process of communication, active listening. Those are actually very good skills to acquire, which we will be discussing. I'm sure you all have discussed that communication method also. It's in your, um, wow, it is one of the training sessions, I think. And then risk management. Risk management, you all know how, risky a project can be in Sri Lanka now, especially these days. Today, what is available today may not be available tomorrow. So those are the risks. And then, there'll be, well, if you are completely dependent on electricity, if there is no electricity, what you are going to do? Those are risk management factors that you really have to understand when you are doing a project, which may not be relevant to you right now, but in life, when you do project management at all, even a small project, it will be very useful. And then your stakeholder management, how your stakeholders are being managed by all of you. As I mentioned, stakeholders can be a lot of people whom you don't even understand. Now, if you are doing a project, as I mentioned, let's say if you are doing a project in the, say, in a jungle, you still have stakeholders there. There are environmentalists, there are uh, people who are interested in the environment, and then there are authorities, then there is police, then there is a forestry department, and then your parents. All those are stakeholders. So these are the actually the knowledge, the knowledge base a project manager should have. And as I always tell you, not just the project manager, all of you are project managers here. When you do the project, understand that all of you should be aware of all these aspects of the knowledge areas for a project manager. For this, anywhere when you are given a project, you really need to document everything, because it's not just you. Now, when you do a successful project, you will always, those documents are available for others to see, and other people can learn from it. So the documentation part is very important. When you start the initiation, you need to understand the scope, do the documentation, make your plans, and show your um, now, even in every project, there is a critical path which we have to understand. The critical path is actually the path where all those functions and tasks have to be completed for your project to finish. Now, there are some peripheral tasks and actions which may not be that relevant. Even if it is not performed, you still can complete your project. It's like say, um, um, let's take a construction site. So the construction site will have to have the during the construction, you will need to have the foundation, right? And then you need to build it up. And when you are building it up, let's say it's just one floor, you don't need a concrete. You need to then find your roof, and then you need to find your doors and windows. You have to find your toilet fittings. You have to understand what plastering, what color you need to do, and then your flow, what exactly is that. So those are the critical points. They are called it is called the critical path. If you don't do the foundation, you can't build on top of it, right? So you have to have the foundation. Though that is called foundation is in the critical part. So those are things that you need to document. When you document that, it's not only for you, it's for the rest of the other teams who go through that, will understand the professional understanding of your project. Somebody honestly talks about what they did, and if they can relate these steps in a project, because when we interview people, we will always ask, okay, give us something that you can talk about, tell us something that you have done in an organization. So if somebody in an organization or in your school or in your study group, if we all can just talk about things like this, you are definitely going to impress your interviewer. It is a no-go. That is definitely so true. Everyone will be impressed, and it shows that your knowledge is very superior to a lot of other people. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you so much, teacher.